half kneeling hamstring liftoff. So I have a foam roller here. I like to use the foam roller as a way to kind of leverage into flexion so I don't really compensate through my low back when I do the hamstring liftoff. So hamstring muscle crosses my knee joint, crosses my hip joint. So if I'm in a tall kneeling position, essentially my hamstring muscle is shortened because my hip is in neutral and I'm bending or flexing my knee. And then when I go into the hover or the lift off, I'm gonna get the muscle to contract more at the knee than at the hip. And a lot of times you'll see people really arch their back and stick their hip out so they can tension the hamstring up in their glute, and that'll help them create that lift off. So ideally, you're gonna be up nice and tall, you're gonna squeeze your glute, hips in neutral, and you're trying to pull and have that hover, or excuse me, that lift off and hold, and then come back to the bottom. And the only thing that should move should be your knee as you're curling your heel to your butt. And then we can use like a yoga block. If I put a yoga block under my foot, that's essentially raising the ground up. That's gonna be a little bit more intense, and it's harder to not compensate in through my low back. Now, if I want to add a little bit of rotation in that lower leg bone, so if I face away from the camera here, if I go into the lift off and then I rotate my foot out and I rotate my foot in, that's going to target the hamstring muscle a little bit differently. So as my foot rotates out and I do a lift off, I'm gonna get the lateral hamstring or the outside. As I rotate my foot in, I lift off, I can get the medial hamstring a little bit. And so the hamstring muscle is responsible for flexing the knee, but can also be responsible for controlling the rotation of the lower leg bone on the femur, and we can target that as well. So take a look at your programming to depict which variation that we're doing. Typically we'll start with just a simple lift off, and if that's too aggressive to stay vertical, then what you can do is kind of lean forward to get a little bit of help from the hamstring at the hip, and that'll reduce the intensity. So if you get really bad cramping where you have to kind of come out of it, it's too intense, you need to scale back by reducing how hard you're contracting, reducing how many reps you're doing, reducing how long you're holding. Maybe you need to change your trunk position, something along those lines. You don't need to change all those variables at once. You need to pick one of those variables, change it, and see if the cramping sensation changes.